Welcome to Reimagining Theological Education Together, where we talk about theological education from all sectors and from around the world and consider how to reimagine it to further strengthen God's people, the church, for gospel mission. Let me tell you a story about a visit that I had at a conference in Africa about 2 or 3 years ago. This was a conference that gathered about 70 or 80 trainers of pastors from around the area. And as they gathered, they met in one large room, and it was a conference of about 3 or 4 days. And the conference was fully packed. I mean, they had meetings starting at 8 o'clock. They would break for lunch, had a few breaks in between here and there, dinner, and then they would continue up until about 9 o'clock at night. This was a full-on, all-day long conference for these trainers of pastors. On the campus where the event was taking place, the conference was held in one building, and then the dining hall was in another building, but they were somewhat connected between the two. Between those two buildings was a beautiful, large pool area where some people were in the pool and enjoying that. But what happened with the conference attendees was this, that because of the conference being so fully packed, I observed some of these conference attendees go from the conference room to the dining hall, and they would do that 3 or 4 times a day. And as they would do that, they would have to go by this pool, and none of them ever had a chance to enjoy that pool while they were there in this conference. Here's my point in saying all this. I've seen theological education leaders, both in the West and in the majority world, be so fully packed, whether it be at a conference or whether it be in their seminaries or training programs or whether it be wherever they serve. We are a busy people nowadays. And here is my concern. My concern is that we have events like this and we have other types of gatherings, and we never even allow people that are at these events to find some time to rest and reflect about what's going on in their own personal lives, but also within their ministries back home. And I know, and most of us know, that ministry outside of the West, in the majority world settings, the global South especially, in those settings, most leaders of training programs are bivocational. Most of them are bivocational. They're doing multiple jobs to sustain their needs for their families. And so here's what I say about this topic. I use the word margin to talk about this. And here's what I say. Personal margin fuels leadership capacity and long-term reach. Personal margin fuels leadership capacity and long-term reach. And let me explain some of this a little bit. When I use the word margin there, what I'm talking about is just that space in life, that margin, that space where you are able to maybe put aside some of your daily responsibilities that you have and be able to enjoy some maybe time alone, time of leisure, time of relaxation, time of reflection as well. And I think we don't do enough of that. And I see too many theological education leaders that do not have that. And as they lack that, they also lack the ability to develop leadership capacity. And that's why I say that personal margin fuels leadership capacity. If we don't have that, how can you develop your own ability to lead others in your organizations, in your training ministries and programs? And also the long-term reach that I mentioned there a moment ago. We are all in this, and I'm trusting that the Lord is calling us to this, not just for the long term, not just for a couple of years or a few months. We are in the ministries that God has called us to. Oftentimes, we feel a deep commitment to that call. And I trust and I pray that most of us will be able to finish well and do it for the long term. And this long-term reach part is so significantly important because as we're doing our training in our theological education programs, how is it that we're developing future leaders that will succeed us and pass the baton over to them so that they can continue with the call? Let me tell you the story of one gentleman that I heard of, where he's a seminary professor at a large school, and he's been teaching there for well over 30 plus years. But he and his wife, every year they take 3 weeks and go somewhere that they have identified every year, the same place. And they go there and they take 3 weeks of no internet, no emails, no communications. And what I've discovered is that this gentleman is in his later years in life, but he is still going as strong as he was 20, 30 years ago. And I want to believe that him taking that personal margin time has fueled him, not only in his leadership capacity, but also has fueled him in his long-term reach and his ability to be able to serve into his later years in life and still do it at a very high level. I've mentioned the ICETE Manifesto before, and here's another statement that I wanted to share with you during this video about the ICETE Manifesto and the topic we're talking about here. It says this: in a world where values, virtues, and ethics are deteriorating, the formation of character and cultivation of wisdom are among the most essential contributions that the Christian community can make to a flourishing life in every occupational sphere. Notice what it says here within this statement. It is again looking at long-term reach in the sense of cultivating wisdom, the formation of character, the virtues, ethics, the practice of theological education. What does it look like over the long term? And the flourishing part in all areas of life. You see, this manifesto is picking up on something that is essential, again, for all of us that are involved in theological education, no matter the form. Creating that space in life that fuels things like character, things like wisdom, margin in life that fuels a life that is making an impact, not just in the short term, but is focused on making an impact over the long term. I started off with that story about that conference in Africa, and then that pool that was between the conference hall and the dining hall. And I got to tell you, I watched the folks go back and forth between that, and I thought, are they ever going to have time to just do a little R&R during this time? Let me give you another story. I was recently in South Asia, and we had a gathering of seminary leaders from across the region. And as I planned the event, along with some others that were in that region, we decided that we were going to embed within the conference intentional time for people to enjoy the facilities that we had around the conference. And so this may sound unusual, but we decided that we would meet in the mornings through lunch and give everyone the afternoons off from 2 to 6 in the afternoon, and then reconvene for dinner and continue on at night. And of course, yes, there was a pool there too. And here's what we discovered. We discovered that the folks that were at this conference, they were enjoying going for walks. There was a beach nearby. They would go on the beach. But there were some incredible conversations that were taking place right in the pool itself. And I remember going into the pool with some of those leaders, and they're in the pool talking about AI and technology and students and all kinds of things, but they're having a blast as they're doing that at the same time. And I had one gentleman come up to me during one of the evenings, and he said, Dr. Michael, he said, thank you for helping us have this event together. He said, I have not had a chance to laugh and enjoy people and my colleagues as much as I have had over these last few days. And it's important, folks, for us to be thinking about this margin topic that I'm referencing. There's a Bible verse that I've recently been meditating on and thinking on. It's found in 2 Timothy 4:7. You are likely very familiar with it. It says this. It says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the course. I have kept the faith. As I've been reflecting on this, and I've been sharing with people that I have more days behind me than I do in front of me. And I'm beginning to really think on topics like this and think about verses like 2 Timothy 4:7. And as I think about that passage, I'm just thinking, if I had 15 minutes to live, would I be able to recite that verse to Jesus? Would I be able to say, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith? Our calling is significant. Our calling is so important to the call of God for his church today, especially in the world of theological education, that I want to make sure that I am finishing the course he's given me to finish and to do it well. And I believe all of us would love to be able to recite that verse if you knew you had only 15 minutes to live. What does it look like for you to have time alone? What might it look like for you to have a little bit more margin, more space in your life that fuels you, that refreshes you, that helps you to gain in wisdom, gain in further understanding your ministry, gain in your theological education, training, ministries, and programs? Imagine what it would look like to be able to recite 2 Timothy 4:7 as your days are getting to be less and less over time, and counting our days, measuring our days. Let's reimagine theological education together, led by people like you, me, others, who had the margin in life and are fueled to lead well and to finish well. If you're enjoying this video and others that I've had on this YouTube channel, please subscribe so you can continue to be informed of other videos coming up. And let's also continue to reimagine theological education together.